Engagers, this is Professor Game, where we interview successful practitioners of games, gamification, and game thinking who bring us the best of their experiences to get ideas, insights, and inspiration to help us in the process of using games and gamification in our daily lives, for example, to learn what we are teaching. And I am Rob Alvarez. I work at IronHack, teach at IE Business School University, and so much more, and host this podcast. If you have an extra second, please go ahead and subscribe for free to our email list at professorgame.com/subscribe. Engagers, today we have a different episode because it was recorded live during my training as a LEGO Serious Play facilitator. It was with Robert Rasmussen himself, who is a main architect in this LEGO Serious Play methodology. He is a former employee of LEGO. He's managing director and chief facilitator. He is the co-author of the book Building a Better Business Using the LEGO Serious Play Method. And after, several years and more than 20 iterations, he and his team developed the concept into reproducible and robust methodology that it is today. He's the master trainer in the LEGO Serious Play methodology. He's the co-principal for Rasmussen Consulting in the US and Denmark, and on the advisory board for Rasmussen Consulting in Japan and Singapore. He's a master trainer for the LEGO Serious Play method, and he has spent his career applying experiences and theories about play, learning, creativity, and teaching business and educational and organizational development. So super interesting interview. However, the audio is not going to be as good as you might be used to on this podcast because, again, it was recorded live using my cell phone, but the content is golden. You'll find all the standard links and all that stuff, all that jazz on professorgame.com. If you look for Robert or Rasmussen with double S at the end, you'll find this episode, all the show notes as always, and I'll leave you to the episode. So welcome, Engagers, to another episode of the Professor Game podcast, and we are with a very exciting character today. We are with the founder, the original creator of the LEGO Serious Play method, Robert Rasmussen. But Robert, we want to know a little bit about LEGO Serious Play. We are literally in the middle of a facilitator workshop today, day 2 out of 4. I would normally ask you, what is LEGO Serious Play? But as you've very insistently told us, describing what it is very difficult without the experience, right? So what can LEGO Serious Play basically do? What can we achieve with LEGO Serious Play?
Well, LEGO Serious Play can help you harvest much more collective intelligence in your team. You have to imagine that when teams in organizations of any level have to somehow gather around the table because whatever they are responsible for and have tried to do, they cannot do isolate. They somehow have to work together. What typically happens when you get people around the table to have what we call a meeting is that 20% of the people use 80% of the talking time to talk about what they always talk about and which we already know they're going to talk about before the meeting even begins. The real problem with that is we do not get enough out of the 80% in the meeting. We do not harvest all the ideas, opinions, insights that is actually present in the room around the table. LEGO Serious Play is designed to create a process where you harvest any kind of idea, any kind of opinion, any kind of insight around a topic that is present around the table. So we create what we call a 100-100 meeting, where everybody participates all the time with everything they can bring to the table. That is the purpose of LEGO Serious Play.
Wow. To get everybody involved, basically, and get the perspectives. Does that make sense?
Whatever people somehow have to bring to the table around the topic while you are sitting around this table. Right? So whatever ideas they might have, whatever perspectives they have, whatever opinions they might have, whatever feelings they might have of whatever topic, you somehow have to address because this is why you are sitting around the table, to somehow find a way to maybe a solution. So it's a way to help people more effectively think, communicate, and problem solve. That is what it is.
So plenty to unpack there, right?
Yeah.
Lots of things to achieve, and many places where that could be achieved as well. And As a not only a trainer of facilitators, of course, which you do, and I know you do often, but you also lead workshops, right? Workshops with clients. What does a life of a Lego facilitator look like?
I think a life of a Lego Sales Play facilitator, of course, is to help whatever their customers or their clients somehow solve the problems or challenges they might have in an organization. Now, this can be something about understanding where to bring the company. It can be something about understanding how to become more competitive, and it can also be in educational settings, etc., to understand how to get students more engaged in their learning process. It can be many things. So, a Lego Sales Play facilitator then design a specific process that somehow helps that situation or helps that problem. Do that by designing a series of questions that go deeper and deeper, and where the participants have to answer these questions by building a model out of Lego and then communicate that. And so it becomes this communication to things. So it becomes a way of thinking and communicating to objects versus just to words.
Nice. So kind of objectifying the communication in a way, right? So, I mean, I've seen it, I've experienced it myself, even before this workshop with a couple of places I've participated as a participant in workshops. And I've had very good experiences, but I mean, with all the years you've been doing this and with all the experimentation you've done, I'm sure there are times when things have not gone the way that you were expecting and something sort of went wrong. Like, is there a, you don't have to name specific names, but maybe a situation where you were trying to achieve something with Lego Serious Play and it actually did not work the way you were expecting? Maybe in the early days.
Of course, there's been situations where whatever came out of the workshop was not as good as you had expected.
Okay.
But in general, when I have many more surprises where I learn much more than in sort of, you can say, positive surprises than negative surprises.
Of course.
Yeah, and when things has gone less good, it has been when I somehow have been too accommodating to follow what the client thought was the right process of solving this problem. And a little bit, I've used this the flying metaphor. I've sometimes been in a situation, where if you're a pilot, you actually ask the passengers or to say, how do you think we should fly here? Like, should we go high or low and stuff like that? And since the process with Lego Sales Play is different, people have a tendency to believe, well, this is just another way of solving problems, another approach, but we still have to do the same things. So when I have relied or not followed my own instinct in terms of sticking with the process and sticking with the method as we have designed it, that is where I've had not so good results.
So not following the process that you have been creating for all these years.
Yeah, because there's a reason behind the process, and one of the discoveries is that you cannot solve a big problem by doing straight into say, here's the problem, what is the solution? We found out that it's kind of like a journey where you go deeper and deeper and deeper. We sometimes describe Lego Sales Play a little bit like a treasure hunt, that you find a bunch of treasures that become bigger and bigger and deeper and deeper. And ultimately, at the last, you find the big treasure, which is the answer to the big question. But if you somehow want to go straight to answering the big question, ask the big question, people don't get there. Somehow you mentally have to warm people up and prepare people and somehow get them ready for it.
Yeah, when you don't follow that process, when you skip something, I'm guessing is one of the things that happens, right?
Yeah, when you try to make a shortcut, then it's sort of, that's where I have not so good results.
so that's the place where not so good results are coming. Is there maybe one, again, you don't need to specify, I was working with this company or that, but one of those times when things actually, as you mentioned, went really well or even better than you were expecting, that one of those very positive surprises, we would like to sort of be in that story with you as much as we can and like maybe see some of the success factors there.
I have one situation where I was going to do a workshop for a a group of people who worked in the factory and sort of had production. And I had been warned, Robert, you don't set your expectations very high because these people are not very creative, etc., etc., etc. You really set your expectations low. And what turned out to be the case was actually the opposite. I have rarely seen so good answers to complex problems as in that situation from people where normally that's what they don't do right. So I think my biggest expectations or biggest surprises often come from people whose voices are not being heard, but who then typically have the biggest insight, because they work in the warehouse or they look after the machine. They don't have sort of leadership jobs and stuff like that. This is sort of my biggest rewards, when you get unexpected, deep insights and answers from people who in their normal environment are not expected to produce those kind of answers.
And Lego Series Play is capable of bringing that to the table because they can sit in the same.
Yeah, these are the remarks that stick with all these years. I remember Brian from the warehouse that where we had to ask some really tough questions. He said, "Robert, nobody has asked me this question for 30 years, and now you're expecting me to answer this question in 5 minutes?" And he could do it. And his biggest, I did not know I knew this. So those are the sort of for me the biggest.
Wow.
I'm much more about giving, or you say what motivates me is that Lego Series Play give voices to the people that normally don't have voices, and those voices are often the ones that can bring the company or the organization, the team, the biggest step forward.
They can make a massive difference because they've not had the tools to make that difference before.
Yeah, they can make a massive difference.
The other people have been continually doing things, and these people have been, just following.
Just following or not being. You don't create an environment where you are expected to let your voice be heard. So the challenge or the advantage of Lego Series Play, you are expected to let your voice be heard, but you can let your voice be heard in a safe way, so you actually really can contribute.
Yeah, that makes sense. And you've mentioned several times both, the not following the process and didn't work well, and of course following actually the process with these unexpected actors as well. Of course, I know this is a 4-day workshop that we do of this, but is there? Could you share a nugget of what the process of Lego Series Play looks like for somebody who's coming at this from the outside, or maybe kind of imagine they might be visiting the Series Play training? Like, how would you explain what the process is about to somebody on the outside?
If you imagine your own workplace, for instance, and your own sort of team you're working with, or your own company, or your own business, or whatever, right? And I asked you the following question. You have to think of a Lego model that somehow would capture an aspect of your culture. Would you build a Lego race car? Would you build a Lego zoo? Would you build a Lego castle? Would you build a Lego farm? Would you build a Lego whatever, police and city, right? So the ability to somehow express yourself to some tangible object like a Lego model is really what it's about.
Wow. Yeah. Expressing all those ideas, all the ideas and situations as well.
Yeah.
Like, what is the current situation as well?
Yeah. Whatever
the company.
Yeah. What do you imagine? What would you actually, if you would have to give me some impression of what is it like to work here, or what is your culture like in your organization today? What kind of Lego model would you give me? Would you give me a train, a car, a tower, a whatever, right? So trying to sort of somehow express yourself through what we call metaphors.
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask, because then sometimes it looks like a Lego race car, but there's a metaphor behind it. And there was a colleague mentioning that it was, it looked like a car or a race car, but it's all about the speed of movement, So it's a metaphor, as you were saying, that they can very well express all these things. That's fantastic, and I was sort of continuing in that same sort of recommendation area. Like this is the what we do here. Is there a best practice of Lego Serious Play? Is there like a place where you think that Lego Serious Play shines the most? Like a type of process, a type of situation where Lego Serious Play is at its best, perhaps?
I think there's something about Lego Serious Play which makes it universal, which goes beyond the actual method and which goes beyond the actual Lego bricks. There's something about the evolution of us, and there's something about the fact that we have hands, and there's something that our ability to build, and what the fact that we have hands have done to our evolution. There's something about Lego Serious Play that taps into something that is our genetic coding. And that is really why it works so well. And which goes beyond the Lego bricks and which goes beyond maybe sort of the actual process. There is something about it that somehow fits right into our human nature and fits right out into our genetic coding. I know it sounds really, really but there is something about it. It really, really works for the way we really are created. And that's what makes it so powerful.
Sort of expressing or doing things.
Stuff with our hands, right? And expressing ourselves.
Thoughts with hands.
Yeah. So where thoughts, which goes back sort of to our evolution and stuff like that. There's something about there that we just really have hit that mark, because Lego Serious Play is this combination of something about building, something about expressing yourself to a metaphor, but also something about a certain group process, a certain group dynamic that secures that everybody gets a chance to somehow express themselves. So it's a mix of a group dynamic set, a set of group dynamic rules combined with a bunch of science in terms of how the hands and the brain interact and stuff like that, and how the emotions play into all of this. Yeah.
That sounds fantastic. And I know you have a great book precisely about Lego Serious Play, the whole method that you wrote several years ago. Is there perhaps, besides your book, of course, is there perhaps sort of maybe a companion or something that could have sort of helped the inspiration? I know you have many sort of a lot of science behind this Lego Serious method. So is there something that would perhaps accompany or give inspiration for the Lego Serious Play to sort of take it to another level or to get prepared for it? A book that you could mention?
Yeah, I think there are two books that are really inspiring for me. And one is a simple book by Edgar Schoen called Humble Inquiry, The Art of Asking Instead of Telling. And the latest book, and I was just reading up, is a book by Sarah Kuhn, who was used to be a professor at Massachusetts, University of Massachusetts in Amherst, and also worked with me on Lego Serious Play many years ago, has just written a book, and I think it's called Thinking with Things, about a lot of experiment and research she's done by using objects to think with in higher education. Also specifically Lego, but not only Lego bricks, but this whole idea of using things to things with. And we talk a lot about how difficult it is to engage students in higher education nowadays, right? Yeah. How motivating. And this is really, really remarkable, some of the research she has done and experiments she's done by using simple objects to think with, which completely changes the dynamic in the classroom versus just the lecturing and versus just the technology. It's really, really inspiring book.
Using I'm guessing, I haven't read the book, I have no idea there, but using the objects to think.
Whether it's knitting or whether it's bricks or whether it's something, but just tangible, right? Yeah.
Yeah, because technology sometimes the digital world is not so tangible.
I couldn't remember. I actually wrote it right on the paper here. I was going to say that this is a really inspiring book. Just recently came out.
Sounds like a fantastic book to read for sure.
It's definitely a really interesting book to read for people that work in higher education.
Yeah. I'll definitely put it on my list for sure, and hopefully the engagers will as well. And I usually ask most of the guests to tell us what is their favorite game, but of course, I don't know if that's a question that makes sense for you. But maybe you have a favorite piece or a favorite group of pieces in Lego, or a favorite model or a favorite build. Is there something when I say that something comes to your mind?
My favorite models of all times is actually a model when you ask somebody to build what is Lego Serious Play, and he built an airport scanner, if you can imagine an airport scanner, and he built sort of this airport scanner, and then on the building plate there was a range of minifigures, and before the airport scanner there was a bunch of minifigures that were all gray and dark and sort of sad. And then right in the airport scanner, there was a Lego minifigure skeleton. And then on the other side, there were minifigures coming out in bright colors with flags and tools in hand, etc., marching forward, right? So this process that Lego Serious Play is actually like a process that goes straight to the bone and the soul of you.
The core, yeah.
The core of you, and then transform people into people that are colorful, motivated, ready to march forward with tools in hands and stuff like that. This is my favorite model of all times.
Sounds like a beautiful model. Is it available somewhere?
Yes, it is available.
Love it.
Yeah,
Love
it is
it.
available.
Sounds fantastic. So thank you very much for investing this time with us, Robert. I don't know if you have any final words, I don't know if you want to say any piece of advice, of course, where we can find out more about Serious Play, etc. So the microphone is yours for sure.
Yeah, no, I think you can, on some of, on a website called seriousplay.training, we also have a YouTube channel where we have a number of small videos called Lego Serious Play at a Glance. There's a lot of good sort of, I think, information to be gained from watching those videos.
I'll definitely link to that on the show notes.
Yeah, please do. Please do.
Thank you very much. Thanks again, Robert, for all this inspiration. However, we'll now say that it's game over.
Yeah, good.
Engagers, it is fantastic to have you around, and thank you for listening to the Professor Game podcast. And if you want more interviews with incredible guests like Robert Rasmussen from the Lego Serious Play methodology himself, all you have to do is go to professorgame.com/subscribe and get started on our email list for free. You'll be in contact, you'll have my email address, and you'll be the first to know of any opportunities that we might have for you. And before moving on to your next mission, to your next big thing, remember please to subscribe or follow for free using your favorite podcast app, and to listen to the next episode of Professor Game. See you there.